Joining us now, member of the House Budget Committee, Democratic Representative Dan Kildee of Michigan. Very, very good to have you
Thanks
on the
for having
show
me
this
on.
morning.
Thanks.
So where does the White House budget proposal stand right now?
Well, I think it's pretty much dead on arrival. We haven't even seen the House Republican budget proposal, let alone the President's proposal, go anywhere. It's a terrible budget.
Why is it a terrible budget?
Well, first of all, for me, it eliminates probably the most important program that we have in the Midwest, and that's the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. Imagine this. It's a project that is at bipartisan support. It's important to the economy. It's important to the environment, and he takes it to zero.
Great.
I mean, so that's just one example of the president walking away from longstanding commitments, something that he seems to be willing to do not only here in the U.S., but across the world. And it would be really bad for the U.S. economy. It makes no sense at all. It's one of those times where you look at it and you think, well, why would he do this? Because he can.
If you look at everything else he does, there's no answer. Noah?
Congressman, we understand that Social Security the various funds will reach insolvency in the 2020s. Medicare and Medicaid are equally imperiled in the 2030s. The president seems to have abandoned some of his campaign trail pledges to not engage in any entitlement reform. There are some reforms in his budget, but that was met with a lot of resistance from Democrats. Are Democrats entirely committed to the idea that these programs do not need reform and that the trustees that say they do are wrong?
Well, it depends on what you mean by reform. If reform means only cutting benefits, rather than when you look at Social Security, considering increasing the cap on income subject to taxation, or when we think about Medicare, perhaps allowing younger, healthier people to take their premium support that they might get through whatever the health care system is, and their own premium dollars and buy into Medicare. If those sorts of ideas are on the table, and they are also considered to be reform, we're open to that.
Well, so do you agree that Social Security and Medicare especially need to be reformed over the next 5-10 years because they're going to become insolvent?
Well, I think the math is what the math is.
But you agree that the math is, it's like a lot of pension programs that General Motors used to have, and like we have in Connecticut, the math doesn't add up.
We can't look the other way and say this isn't happening,
right. But
we can't just take the position that the only way to deal with these structural problems, right, which will mitigate over time because the baby boomers, all of us are going to kind of move through this bubble, and then we won't be there any longer. But as that happens, we've got to be willing to look at some reforms. But that doesn't mean we have to embrace the notion that the only way to fix these two really essential programs is to say that the people who need them the most are going to have to give something up.
So, but why doesn't it ever get done? Because Barack Obama said the first month that he was in the White House, at his Fiscal Responsibility Summit, I always loved the title of that we couldn't, quote, kick the can down the road anymore on Social Security and Medicare. And yet we have. And now Donald Trump's promising to do it for another 8 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty frustrating. In fact, it's pretty frustrating that we're really not talking about anything substantive right now, whether it's Social Security and Medicare, the budget, which is the first question you posed, infrastructure.
Well, isn't it Infrastructure Week, Mark? I mean, we all celebrating?
Week. I'm very excited.
Yeah. It's the big distraction this week.
I've got this hat that's like an overpass that I'm going to wear tomorrow.
I kind of feel bad I didn't get you anything.
I know,
yeah, really.
I know. Mark,
we should have worn hard hats.
What would it take for you to vote for a Donald Trump-sponsored infrastructure package?
Couple things. One, obviously it has to be big enough to be transformative. Secondly, and this is a little wonky, we would have to make sure that those 40 or 50 really distressed older industrial cities got some additional support, essentially a Marshall Plan for those places, because a big infusion of capital moving into infrastructure could inadvertently have the effect of more efficiently emptying out these older cities by creating magnets for development. Now, we saw that to a certain extent with the development of the interstate highway system. Right. I'm really fearful that places like Flint or Buffalo or Cleveland or Youngstown, while they would seem to be the beneficiaries of this, could really lose, because a lot of money going into much easier to develop places could just exacerbate
Congressman
the
Nick Contasori writes headlines for the New York Times.
Yeah. It's my main job. All right, so your state is one of 3 that gave the presidency to Donald Trump.
Right.
We've talked a lot on this set before about his relationship with his voters and what it might take to unwind that relationship and why they stick by him. Do you see any movement in your state of the people who gave him the presidency, and what do they want to see from him in the next 3 years?
So two things contributed to his winning Michigan. One is that he had the frustrated voter who felt like we'd all abandoned them go with him. The other is the sort of the middle, the base that we depend upon was unmotivated.
Did Hillary Clinton campaign enough in Michigan?
She was in Michigan. I mean, it wasn't like the
Was she enough? Was she there enough?
Yeah, I don't think it was about time. I think it was about the sort of the focus of the message.
Timing.
It really needed to be about jobs and the economy and nothing else. I mean, Bill Clinton, his campaign said it best. It's the economy's stupid. If we're not talking about jobs, and if we're not talking about how to grow the economy, it does not matter what else we're talking about in Michigan.
Congressman Dan Kildee, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Come back.